Okay. What you guys have in front of you is your promised grade sheet, okay? And we need to look closely at those. As I said, the grades, I give you these grade sheets once every 4 weeks. So this is the first one. This is the quarter, okay, the quarter check. Then we have another one at midterm and then another one at 3/4. Okay, so what you need to be looking for on here is yellow marks. All right, up at the top it says if you have problem areas, they are highlighted in yellow. Let me find them this one. Somebody doesn't want that. Okay, so I'm looking for a good example, but I'm trying not to show the person's name. Okay, so excuse me if I. Okay, so this person, oops, let's get this changed. This person has, let's see, did not turn in the description paragraph. And as we said, for purposes of turning in papers, you can see here now, we talked about this a little bit earlier, you can see how many writing assignments are in that category. Remember from the green sheet, this class has 5 categories, okay? So you need to get a passing grade in each one of those categories. And as I said, in college, especially in a class where you're turning in a number of essays, sometimes you make a decision that you're not going to be able to do one or the other paper, okay? So for whatever reason, maybe this person, it's a little early in the semester to do that, but this person made the decision not to turn in the description paragraph, okay? So at this point in this category, this person has only a 2.0, which is not a passing grade in that category. But if this person turns in the rest of these papers, he or she will bring that grade up, okay? Most of you are not in that boat. Most of you have a grade here. But I'm just, because we talked about that a little bit, the reason I put that in yellow, it says if you have problem areas, they're highlighted in yellow. Like I say, it's a little early in the semester to be making the decision of, oh, I'm not going to turn paper in. Usually when a student does that, I find that they continue to do that, okay? So that's why I put it in yellow. But this person could still pass the class. I mean, they're not, even though they now have a failing grade at this point, if they go ahead and turn everything else in, they'll be okay, all right? But you can kind of see here, from the information on your green sheet, you guys can kind of see here that this is the smallest group. Obviously, this group is a lot bigger. And you can see, you know, people are always asking me, how many points is this assignment? I don't grade on points, I grade on average. You can see what you need to do to keep this average up as high as possible, okay? Okay, so the other place that I put, some people have a little flag here. Now this person didn't turn in homework 1, but at this point, that's not a problem. This person has turned in the other homeworks. They're missing 1 homework. That's not going to make or break you. Because this category, the homework and quizzes, as you can see, that goes all the way over to here. That's the huge category. So that's why I'm saying if you miss a quiz, it's not the end of the world, but you don't want to be missing 4 or 5 of those, because then it gets dangerous. Okay, then the grades can start to drop. So some people have some notes right here that says you can't miss any more work, okay? Because there are some people from whom I have not yet seen a homework assignment, okay? That it always happens, this isn't unusual. The other place I made a yellow mark is on the journal, okay? We still don't have 100% online on the journals, okay? People are missing 1, 2, or all of them. There's a handful of people who have not yet done a journal entry, okay? So you don't have anything on paper with a journal grade except this. So this is the first time you've seen that journal grade. If you have, remember that a passing grade in this class, as you know from the green sheet, remember my esoteric grading system? Passing, you're looking for at least a 2.9. Anything below that is not passing. So this grade, I give this grade, the journal grades are kind of holistic. Basically, if you get everything, you get a 4.0. Okay, Andrew and Jacob, you guys need to pay attention because you're going to have questions about this, okay? Anything below that, and there were several levels of this, some people just didn't do one of the online entries. You did 1 and 2, but you didn't do 3, or you did 2 and 3 and you didn't do 1. Some people did them, but they didn't have 300 words for each one. So anybody that didn't have the complete journal, which was 900 words, okay, got, as you can see, like I say, this is a holistic grade. It's just under passing. Okay, so what those people need to do, and I made these comments in, it says it's in MPC Online, so you can go in there and look. You need to fill in. You need to catch up and fill in. I don't accept late papers, but the journal, you do have to keep going back and filling it in if you didn't get a full grade on that. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's just, at this point, it's just one of these quiz grades. It's not going to affect your grade in the class. But if you don't have it filled in by this time, this does become a pass, no pass issue. If you don't have a complete journal by the end, you will not pass the class. So if you're behind now, this is one of the reasons I do it this way. You need to get back in there and get caught up, and keep up with the one I just put up today. Okay, the other place that I made that some people are having issues is attendance. So if you, like I said, if you have a yellow highlight, this person only has that 1, I think, with the 2 with this and the missing paper. So with the, these people, if you're in trouble with absences, I basically just highlight that. There's a lot of people in here that are. Okay. The English Center labs, I did not, this is the most bizarre thing with the English Center labs. You just can't believe what goes on in this school. They're saying now that they're not going to give me those reports every week. So I'm kind of at a loss as to where people are. I know last week we had one. Didn't we have one last week? Okay, I'll try to get one again for Thursday. But so people should know from last week. So that's not on here. That if you're behind in your lab, it doesn't reflect on here. So don't look at this and say, oh good, there's no yellow mark here, I must be doing okay. I didn't even put that on there at this point. Okay, so what you guys need to do with these, here's an interesting thing about this. This is called a grade report, but you'll notice that where it says down at the bottom here, course grade, that's not filled out. So you might have the question, if this is a grade report, why didn't you put on here what my grade is at this point? Okay, anybody wonder that? Okay, the reason I don't do that is because I'm gonna make you do it. And one of my reasons for doing that is I want you to know that you are always able to figure your own grade. People are always coming and asking me, what are you giving me in this class? What grade do I have? And I say, you know what? One of the things we talked about with the green sheet, and this should be true of any instructor's green sheet, you should be able to take the information on the green sheet, take the papers you've gotten back, and figure your own grade. Okay? So that's why I don't put this in here, because you need to do it. Okay? And the instructions are all on here. So we're going to add these up. Like I said, this person at this point has only a 2.0 here, right? Then you're going to add all of these up. So this is the second category. So in this class, we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yeah, 10, it's the same. So you have 10 grades in here so far. So you need to add all these up and divide by 10, okay? Then you put that number here. Then you take your attendance number, and if you don't have a number there, it means you have a 4.0. I just didn't fill it in. If it says 0, 0, you have a 4.0 here. Add up those 3 lines, those are the only ones we know so far, and divide that by 3. And that will tell you how you're doing in the class. And remember, you have that little green handwritten grade sheet that will tell you what a 3.7 is, what a 3.6 is, all that kind of stuff. If you need help with it, come to my office and I can help you figure it, okay? But at this point, it's pretty simple. It's just, we only have the lines number 1, 2, and 3 at this point. So you can divide those by 3. Does that make sense? So if you need, like I said, if you need help with it, come to my office, but otherwise, that should give you kind of a heads up as to where you are. Now, there's a couple of different things, let's see, a couple of different notations here. Who is this? Okay, good, this is a good one. 2 things here going on. If you have a 0 on something, that means you did not do it. Or if you did it, I did not get it on the day it was due, and I don't accept late work. So if you didn't turn something in, you have a 0. You cannot now turn that in. But I think I wrote 2 different things here. Now this is the one that I just handed back to you, and nobody has a grade on that one. So we're going to talk about, that's the one we did on Thursday, that subject-verb one. We need to talk about that like we did with the, remember with the standard English, that was the same thing. Nobody got a grade on it. We worked over it and turned it back in. So everyone's going to turn that back in today. So if you're thinking, I didn't get anything back to redo, that's what you have right now. You have it in your hand, okay? So when you turn that back in, then I'll fill that in, okay? I think on this one, on some of them, I also put, oh yeah, I also put this. So on this one, either one of these, or maybe he wasn't here, is due today. It means you're going to turn it back in today, okay? If you got a pink sheet on something, okay, if you turned something in on time, and I gave it back to you with a pink sheet, then you have a redo here, sometimes with a question mark, because I don't remember what date I put on the pink sheet. Anything that's like right here is probably you still have it and you need to turn it back in. But if you don't turn that pink sheet in by the deadline, then that turns into a 0. Okay? Does that make sense to people? It's all pretty logical if you think about it. Okay, so here's another thing. If you have a 0 on something, and please, here's the thing about this, the journal. I found that I need to find a different way to do that journal online. Right now, the way it is, it's really hard. It's not hard, it's just time consuming to keep going in and checking who's done number 1, 2, 3. So if you have like a 2.8 on the journal, if you have a less than passing grade on the journal, and you did do it, and you're thinking, wait a minute, this is wrong, I did all those, come and talk to me. Because it could be that I made a mistake. I made a mistake in some of the other classes on that journal grade. This class, not so much, because I'm making everybody take it online in this class. In the other class, I'm letting them do it both ways, and I can't tell who's doing what. But this class, it should be pretty accurate. But that goes for anything. If you see something, if you see, oh, I have a 0 here, but you have it in your hand and it has a grade on it, bring it to me and we'll fix it, okay? Okay, so again, you will see this same sheet. I use the same, I have a copy of it, I use the same sheet. You'll see it again at the halfway mark, midterm, and you'll see it again 4 weeks before you get out of the class, and then at the end, okay? So come and ask me questions about it if you want. Yeah, this person has a little note about, I didn't put a yellow thing there, but I wrote a note, too many tardies. Remember, if you, 3 tardies equals an absence, so if you keep coming in late, you're eventually gonna get 4 absences and I'm gonna drop you, even though you've been here every day. If you keep getting tardies, you're gonna run up absences. Okay, so if that's a problem, you have a little note. Okay, so those are your copies of them. And one of the things I always say is, if someone comes to me from now on and says, how am I doing in the class? I'm gonna say, you can figure that out. Get out your grade sheet. If you lose it, come get another one. These aren't on mine. If you have a question about it, come and talk to me. But I want you to take responsibility for that grade. Because it's not, like I say, it's not me giving it to you. You are doing the work and getting it back, so you know what you're getting. Okay, so let's see. Let's move on. And some of these people at this point, there's a couple of people that I think are at the drop point. They're not here, but some people I think are gonna disappear. Okay. Oh, another thing. If you are looking at this and saying, I know I did that, but I didn't get it back, and I think I want to have Ms. Penny fix it, remember that this semester, and this is something that I haven't done before, but believe me, it's freed up my time. If you are absent and I hand papers back, if you're not here when I hand papers back, I'm not, it just takes an incredible amount of time to save those papers, file them back in with the stuff I'm handing back, and it takes up room in my notebook. So what I'm doing is, I'm putting them in my out box by my office. The box at the top, it says turn papers in, and there's another little box that says pick up unclaimed papers. So if you're looking at this and thinking, I know I did that, but I can't find it, it could be that it's over there in that box, and that's getting pretty big. That's getting to be a pretty big stack of papers. So you need to go over there and leaf through it. The other thing that's in that box, another thing that I just realized I do not have enough time to deal with, is papers that did not have names on them. If at this point my policy is no name, no grade. So I'm not spending that 10 minutes that I used to spend trying to figure out whose paper it is. I'm just sticking it out in that box. So something that you didn't get back may be out in that box. You need to come and look for it, okay? And that's actually, very honestly, that's what most teachers do. I finally realized that I was spending an awful lot of my time trying to deal with people who didn't pick up their papers or didn't put names. Most teachers do that. I call it the slush pile. They just put it into the slush pile, and you guys have to come pick it up. Okay, so we need to move on with our stuff today. We need to talk about this subject-verb agreement exercise. And I was actually very impressed with the number of students that did this right, even though most of you have my famous little, what I call little ticks out here, where I just put a tick. It's meant to be kind of a half of a check mark, meaning that something is wrong. But here was the thing. Like I said, I changed my whole grammar sequence around this semester. So I'm pulling up some quizzes that I used to use in the past, and I'm redoing them as we go. And as many of you know who have had me before, when I pull something up, and you guys have probably done it too, have you ever pulled something up to like a template to use for something else, and then you fix it and you forget to change something on the top? I do it all the time. Sure enough, I forgot to change the directions for I put new sentences in, but I didn't change the directions. So you poor people were trying to figure out what those directions meant. Like I said, I was amazed at how many people did it right, considering that it had the old directions there, okay? But what was a little disturbing was, and I realized sometimes I think maybe I do that subconsciously on purpose so that I get to talk about something else. Most people did it right. They realized that what this exercise was what we had been doing up here. And they went ahead and edited the sentence to be right. But what was a little scary was people who had, like we had said, read the directions, okay, and then tried to do that, but what they were circling wasn't verbs, okay, because it says circle the correct verb. So I think we need, before we go on with this, I just want to do a real basic grammar lesson, which we may not have done in this class. And I know this is going to sound like it's a little bit off topic, but what are the 3 things that a sentence has to have? Yeah, okay, and this is why I didn't go over it, because you guys should all know this. A subject, right, and a verb, and what's the 3rd thing? What? I think I heard somebody say, what's the 3rd thing a complete sentence
An object?
has to have?
An object?
Doesn't have to have an object. What's the 3rd thing it has to have? You guys remember, I know people in my reading class remember. If you took 321, you should remember.
Predicate.
A subject, a verb, and...
A predicate.
Good, okay. It used to be called a predicate. Now, what's a predicate? If you say,
A simple sentence.
okay, well, this is a simple sentence, but that's, what we're looking for is the 3 things, a complete sentence, whether it's a simple sentence, a complex sentence, or one of those other ones. This list is of this. I'm writing up here because it doesn't really have to do with this, okay? What's the subject of this sentence?
I.
I. The subject, what does the subject do in a sentence?
Teach.
The subject is always a noun. It's always a person, place, or thing, right? So why isn't MPC the subject? Because MPC isn't doing anything in this sentence. This is the thing that's doing the action. Okay, so the subject does the action. You can have a lot of other nouns, and sometimes you have more than one noun doing action, which was what a lot of these sentences were. The nouns were farther on in the sentence. So what's the verb? Yeah, this is the subject. This is the verb. Okay, so what's the predicate of this sentence?
At MPC.
That's where the problem comes in with
Or you have
predicate.
to
And that's
add.
why they stopped teaching that word, although it's true. Okay, basically what the predicate is anything that's not the subject. So in this sentence, this whole thing is the predicate. Okay? Now, here's why most grammar books have changed that. Although, like I said, it's perfectly true. How many people were taught that word? You were taught that word. It's interesting because more and more students don't recognize that word. I think most of the grammar books are kind of moving toward the other thing they call it. So this is a complete sentence. It has a subject, a verb, and a predicate. Okay? Now, what about this. Is this a complete sentence? No. Yes, it is. Okay? And this is where the predicate ran into trouble. This is where they ran into trouble teaching the predicate. Okay? In this sentence, I is the subject, teach is the verb, and like I said, the predicate is anything that's not the subject. So this is also the subject. This is a complete sentence, grammatically. It doesn't tell us very much. It's a very short sentence, but here's what they changed this to, and some of you will recognize this. This is what we now teach in the English Center, and most of the grammar books call it this. A couple of different things, but how many people have heard this? Yeah, or sometimes it's called, and here's another thing, you'll be amazed as we go on into these grammar lessons, how many different names there are for things. Different grammar teachers have totally different names. It's amazing that they can't all get together, okay? So this is a complete thought. It's the answer to the question, what do you do for a living? And I would say, I teach. Like I say, it doesn't tell us very much. It doesn't tell us what I teach or where I teach or anything, but it is grammatically considered a complete sentence, okay? So if you were going to circle verbs, which was wrong, you didn't need to do, I was a little alarmed at the number of people who circled things like this. Is this a verb? No, that's a noun. It's not the main subject of the sentence. And that's not a subject at all in that sentence, okay? So the only reason to circle those verbs would be to check if they matched the subject, because that's what this should have said. And I've now fixed it and get it off. Okay. Edit to make sure subject and verb agree, which is what we were doing up on the board. And like I said, I was surprised at the number of people who did it right. They either didn't read the directions or they understood what they were supposed to do. Okay, so the first verb in this sentence is underestimate. And because this tense, should underestimate, is the conditional tense, this is correct. It's not our straight past, present, future. This will always be should underestimate, no matter what you're doing, okay? So that's okay. A student should never underestimate. What's the next verb in this sentence? Yeah, and so this agrees with this subject. A student should underestimate. Does this agree with the subject that goes with this? A student should never underestimate the size of the reading vocabulary that college courses normally, yeah. So this, and remember our chart, and again, this was a lesson in looking at sentences that aren't as obvious as, this is the first one we started with. Remember that? And we, like we said, everyone knows that's wrong, and everyone knows how to fix it. So why do we have to spend so much time on subject-verb agreement, right? But this is a problem. You get sentences like this, and it's not quite so clear that it's wrong, okay? So remember this, we're looking for he, she, it, and they. So the courses goes with they, and if in your head you conjugate the verb to require, you have I require, you require, he requires, we require, you require, they. What did you have to do to this one? Take off the S. Okay, does that make sense? So people need to be correcting this because you need to turn it back in. Yes? Okay, people who came in late, let me see. Okay. This is okay. All right, so on the next one. And these are tricky. These are, you really have to read the sentence carefully. In the opening session, the first of the keynote speakers usually welcome the guests. Now remember up here, this was correct. Remember we said these were called nearest noun agreement errors, otherwise known as lost subjects. So when we see this, speakers usually welcome, that sounds right. But is this the subject that this verb is trying to agree with? No. What's the subject? Actually, believe it or not, it's this. It's actually this. So the first speaker usually, what should that be? I welcome, you welcome, they welcome, he welcomes, we welcome, you welcome, they welcome. So this, let me put our numbers back up here. Remember, this is first and second. Oops, no it's not. This is first and second. And this is singular and plural. Remember that? We did that the other day. So the first of the keynote speakers is what person? Yeah, first, third person singular. Okay, so this is a he or a she. The first speaker usually, what should that be? Welcomes, right? So that's an S. Okay, according to the witnesses at the scene, the speed of the two cars racing down the highway were far beyond the legal limit. So again, our brain is saying cars were, and that sounds right. But is cars the subject of that phrase? No. What's the subject? No. What was far beyond the legal limit? The speed. And that's an it. So it, what should this be? It was. Yeah. And again, these are again, two different things. Some books call them nearest noun agreement, because what we're doing is our brain is matching this with the noun nearest to it that makes sense. This noun doesn't make any sense. But it's also called, I call it lost subjects, because the subject has gotten lost way back up here. You have all these phrases in between. Okay? Okay. Because of the war, the profits from our overseas operations seems to be down. Now this should have given you, been a heads up, because that doesn't sound right. Operations seems. But what should that be matching with? What
Should we
seems to be down?
Get rid of the S?
The what?
Should we get rid of the S?
Yes, but why? But let me understand why you're getting rid of the S.
Well, because there's two words and they both have S's at the end, so there should only be one S.
Okay, there's only one S here, but is this what you're matching this verb with? Are you matching it with the word operations? No, you're matching with this. Yeah, so I want to make sure, you know that old saying, it's more important to understand what you're doing than it is to get the right answer, okay? Yeah, so the profits seen. Now, because of the mysteries of English, you could have also fixed it by taking off the S off of profits, because that means the same thing, profits. Yeah, it's just the way our language is. Okay, here's another one, and again, the longer these sentences get, I know, Lydia, you're looking like, what is this? I know, it's confusing. Let me just rest your mind. Mostly, and one of the reasons I go over this and let you make changes is, I'm not so concerned that you're able to fix all everything you do. What I'm more concerned about in these grammar lessons is that from now on, if I say to you your subject and verb going to be, you're going to at least understand what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? So yeah, these are weird. These are long, complicated sentences. Probably not sentences you're going to be writing in your papers, but they're good examples of how this happens. Okay. For our kind of operation, the cost of routine maintenance for normal wear and tear on equipment are within acceptable parameters. So the verb is this, and does that agree with the subject? Anyone? No, because what's the subject? What are we trying to make it agree with? What's doing the action of being within the acceptable parameters? This, yeah, it's way back up there. It's lost. That subject has been lost. The cost is a single thing.
It should be is.
So
it should be is.
Yes, the cost is. Again, weirdly enough, with English, you could have fixed it by making costs plural without changing the meaning. You don't want to change the meaning, but for some reason when we talk about money, profits, costs, it means the same thing. Profits is the same as profit. Costs are the same as cost. That's just the way English is. And we did this one up on the board, right? This is the verb, but this is not the subject it needs to match with. It's this, the building has. Okay, now on this one, people tended to want to change things. You can't go in here, because remember what it says up here, without changing the meaning, okay? So some people cross this out and just wrote they here. You can use that as a check to make sure that you understand that this needs to be the plural form, but you can't just change that sentence like that, because this writer is saying the two people. So you need to leave this in here, and this, when you do little dots like this, that means leave that as it is. But what does this need to be? They, I help, you help, he helps, we help, you help.
Take the S off.
They help, okay? Now, here's what a lot of people did. Why did I mark that wrong? That, and I made a little
Because it's
note,
not past.
that changes the meaning. So this is another thing that I hope to help you with in doing these grammar lessons. One is so that you guys understand what it means when I do this over here, SB. You're going to say, oh, that's a subject. Somewhere in here I got to fix the subject verb problem, okay? The other thing is that when you are editing somebody else's paper, which is one of the things we're learning to do in this class, you can't, treat this as a writing partner's paper, somebody you're peer reviewing. You can't make that kind of change, because that's not what this person is saying. They're saying they help me now. They're doing this now. They didn't do it in the past, they're doing it now. So by changing the tense from present to past, you're changing the meaning. So that's why I marked that wrong. A lot of you look at that and say, why is that wrong? Because that isn't what this sentence says. So that's something you need to think about in your writer's paper. I would rather that you just make a note and say, you know what, I'm not sure this is what you mean, but you can't just go in and change it to past. Okay? Okay, so what does this need to be? They help. Yeah. So this is the thing about this quiz. To fix this quiz, you didn't need to do all these marking. You just needed to cross off some S's mostly, okay? But yeah, there's a lot of thought that has to go into it. Same thing. The senator and his assistant, they need, okay? This looks right, one cat is, but what does this have to be? Are. Yeah, it was interesting. Most people did pretty much okay on these. Now, this is a tricky one, and this is one that I didn't add on the little list I put up here, because there was only one on here. But this is another tricky thing that you have to watch for. What is the subject of sentence number 4? What's the thing that's doing the action in that subject? Okay, that's what it looks like, right? Because most sentences in English go this way. Most of them go subject, verb, predicate, okay? But some of them don't. If you think about it, what's the verb in here? The verb is, and you have to watch that because that's the verb to be, which is an action verb. You know, the subject does the action, the verb is the action. And people tend to kind of skip over is because just being doesn't seem like you're doing any action, okay? What is this verb connected with? Is what in this sentence? Well, the proposal is a noun, but there's another piece of this verb. What is the proposal doing in this sentence?
Are.
Yeah, if you think about it, the proposal isn't doing anything. What's doing the action? The printer and scanner are doing the action of what?
Printing and scanning of include.
Being included. Yeah. So what this sentence does is it turns it around. The printer and scanner are doing the action of being included. So in this sentence, it doesn't go subject, verb, predicate. This is the subject. So the printer and scanner are compound subjects, so what does this have to be? This has to be are. Also included in the proposal are, so if this were subject, verb, predicate, it would say a printer and a scanner are also included. Okay, most people got this one right. They live. Okay, now on this one, people either, and it always happens, people either got these all right or got them all wrong. There was kind of no in between on this. So keep in mind that these words, and there are others like them in the English language, these words that are called indefinite pronouns. This is so frustrating. It has the thing right there and it doesn't come. Okay. Let me see if I can just. Okay, so if I type in indefinite pronouns list into Google, these different sites we get, okay? All of these, see the words over in the far left-hand list? Another, anybody, anyone, anything, each, either, enough, everybody, everyone.